If you find yourself being overwhelmed with all the possible attractions and things to do to see in the Smoky Mountain National Park, then you're in the right place because this is the ultimate guide to the Smoky Mountains, all in one short video. Welcome to Bear Facts, where we explore the Smoky Mountains one bear fact at a time. Welcome everyone, thank you for visiting our channel. Today we're going to be doing a whirlwind tour of the Smoky Mountain National Park, exploring all the top destinations and most popular hiking trails and places to see. By the end of this video, you should know the best places to rock hop, popular overlooks that are often overlooked, and peaceful places where elk graze. If you're new to the Smoky Mountains, this is the perfect video to get your research started, and for those seasoned mountain explorers, you might learn something new. So stay tuned. For the sake of sanity in this video, we're going to start all of our adventures from Gatlinburg. And even though there are several other places that you can get to the park from, either Townsend, Pigeon Forge, or other areas in Cherokee, Gatlinburg is where two major roads that go through the Smoky Mountains merge at the same point. So it's a really good, easy place to start from. And the two roads are 441 and 73. So when you're driving through the middle of Gatlinburg, you are actually on both those roads at the same time until you get to the park, where the two roads diverge. And this is what we'll be following, are these two main roads. However, we will also touch on a couple places that are not on 441 or 73, and I'll point these out at the end of the video. Unfortunately, because Gatlinburg is so easy to navigate, a lot of people use it, so Gatlinburg has a tendency to have a lot of traffic and can get overwhelming for many visitors. So just remember, there are alternatives to access the park than just Gatlinburg. We're just keeping it simple and going from there though. Now, before we begin the journey into the park, I find that there's a couple important things that everyone should know before you start your journey. First is to talk about the parking passes. Yeah, I know. In order to park your vehicle for more than 15 minutes at a time, you need a parking tag for your vehicle. The tags can be purchased at any of the visitor centers or even online. Though you do not need the parking tag to drive through the park, you do need it to park your car. Secondly, there are public restrooms with running water at almost every visitor center. So if you see a visitor center and you want running water, stop there. The rest of the park, you'll see these things. These are called vault toilets, and they're basically small buildings placed over a toilet with a hole in the ground. Now, these do not have running water, but the trade-off is that they can be left open year-round, with a few exceptions. Every major hiking trail will have a vault toilet. Though I do suggest bringing extra wipes, as these vaults can run out of supplies and are hard to maintain. The next thing I'm going to bring up is something that a lot of people just don't think about, and that is the wildlife. When you're in the Smoky Mountain National Park, there are definitely rules and regulations. You are not allowed to feed the wildlife. It is illegal. It is against the law to do it. And even worse yet, if let's say you were to go ahead and pet a bear, why the bear would let you pet them, I don't know, but if you did decide to do that, you just signed that bear's death sentence. Because any bear, and this is the regulation in the park, it is the regulation in Gatlinburg as well, if you were to do that, the bear has to be euthanized. It's just as simple as that. So please don't feed them, okay? Just don't feed them. One last thing before we actually start exploring the park, I just want to make sure you really understand how the layout of the park is. It's very simple. When you leave through Gatlinburg, you're on 441 and 73. At Sugarland Center, Visitor Center, you will notice the road splits in half. The 441 will follow all the way through the park until it exits the park in North Carolina, Cherokee. And if you take a right, you will be following 73 all the way to Townsend, Tennessee. The two roads do not connect. It's just something to know. All right, now that I've got all that stuff taken care of and explained all those little details, let's get on to our tour of the Smoky Mountain National Park. The very first thing that we're going to see as soon as we leave Gatlinburg and hit the park is the sign. In the digital age we're living in, this is a super popular thing that people like to do, so you will probably see a line of people waiting to get a picture in front of the Smoky Mountain National Park sign. The one outside of Gatlinburg is actually the biggest one. There are several others in the park and different entrances to the park, but that's the big one. After you've gotten your selfie, it's time to keep moving down the road. The next place is going to be Sugar Land's Visitor Center. This is a very important stop, and it's a very important split in the road. As we've already mentioned, this is where 73 and 441 split. The Sugar Land Visitor Center is the largest of all the visitor centers in the park. It's the big one and the one that most people end up stopping at first. Inside, you're going to find exhibits, a small museum and gift shop, obviously restrooms, and there's actual rangers who will answer many of your questions if you have them, and you can buy maps and brochures as well. And if you're in the mood for a quick hike, right behind the visitor center is the Cataract Falls. And this is mostly a little flat walkway that will take you to waterfalls. It's not very long. It's actually a very short hike. It's not a spectacular falls unless it just rained, then it's kind of fun. But it is still a nice way to kind of gradually ease you into the exploration of the Smoky Mountains. Once leaving Sugar Lands, it's time to decide which direction we're going to go. We're going to start our tour at 73, which has a few different names. At one point, this road changes names at least 3 times, and that's not including the time it started its base in 441. So you will see in Google Maps that it's sometimes called Fighting Creek Gap Road, Little River Gorge, and finally, the last end of it is the Townsend Entrance Road. Regardless of what it's called, it does seem to have one unifying factor, and that is the Little River. Now, the Little River is an excellent river for fishing, viewing spots, and, of course, swimming holes. Being so close to the waterway for the entire route makes it a really ideal place to find great hiking trails and spectacular waterfalls. One of the most popular is Laurel Falls. They are under renovations right now, and they're going to expand the parking lot, and I've heard also they're doing some great things with the trail itself. So it's closed at this time. They are slated to open around 2026. Now, as you continue on 73, you're going to reach the Elkmont area. Elkmont is one of the largest campgrounds in the park, but it's also home to the historic Daisy Town, though most people like to call it the Elkmont Ghost Town. This town is actually an old vacation resort town, and it is full of fully preserved cabins that actually used to be owned by the wealthy Knoxville vacationers before the opening of the park. Before this town even came into existence, the loggers actually used to live here as well. So around the entire area, you're going to find the scattered remains of old buildings that had been demolished or taken down due to their unreliable stableness and now are just skeletons of the past. You'll also find one other piece of the past, and that's the remains of the Wonderland Hotel. This is one of the only hotels that ever was actually open during the Smoky Mountain time when the mountains were actual a national park for visitors to rent and to stay in. Now it is just a shell of its former glory, as it was finally demolished in 2016 due to deterioration of the structure and also a small fire. There is a sense of unsettled mystery as you walk through Elkmont and its abandoned buildings, discovering the skeletons of chimney stacks rising from the ground like gravestones, while the forest slowly swallows whatever stories were left behind. A short drive from Elkmont are the Sinks, yet another distant memory of the past that is still a powerful reminder of what humans can do to nature if left unchecked. The Sinks are a powerful and dramatic cascade created unintentionally by early loggers when they used dynamite to move jam logs as they were traveling them to town. The river was forced through a narrow rock chute and then explodes into churning waterfalls beyond. It's a popular place for kayakers, those crazy enough to take that adventure on, and adrenaline junkies who like to jump off the cliffs close to the rocky sides. It's also very dangerous. For those of you who want to just sit and enjoy the views, it's quite spectacular. Unfortunately, like most places in the park that are popular attractions, parking is extremely limited. Just past the sinks, you're going to find Meg's Falls, which is actually visible right from the road. It's a perfect example of how beautiful the landscape can be, and you don't always need to hike there. However, if you do want to hike to Meg's Falls, you would have to go back to the sinks, park your car if you can find a parking spot, because the trail starts there. As we get closer to the end of Route 73, there's some pretty popular stops on the way. One is the Y, which is a popular swimming and tubing area where two sections of the river slow down and meet. It's called the Y as a throwback to the railways that used to intersect here. And though the railroad ties have all been removed in the early 1930s, the memories remain and the name stuck. There aren't any signs that actually label this part of the park the Y, but people seem to know what it is, and this is what they're still calling it. Once again, parking is very limited. In the summer, this place fills up fast, mostly with people who are looking for a comfortable place to wade in the water or water tubing. Most park goers who have made it this far down 73 are actually heading towards a very well-known and beloved part of the park, Cades Cove. But before you get to Cades Cove, I would highly suggest considering stopping at the Tremont area. This is home to the Great Smoky Mountain Institute at the Tremont, and you can hike the Spruce Flats Falls from here. This is a moderately difficult hike, about 2 miles round trip, that leads to one of the more dramatic waterfalls in the park. Further down the road actually are more hiking trails, and for those who want to do a little off-roading, it's a good opportunity to get some mud on your car. It's also more quiet in this part of the park, and you'll often see people fishing all along this part of the river. Now, off of 73 and down about 7 miles past 73 on Laurel Creek Road is one of the most popular attractions in the Smoky Mountain National Park. Some people love it, some people don't understand it, some people just hate it. Either way, it is very popular. It's called Cades Cove, and this is a broad scenic valley that was once lived in by early settlers. It is surrounded by mountains, and it's centered around an 11-mile loop road that travelers like to drive their car around and check out the sights. Along the loop, you'll find historic cabins, churches, barns, and an actual working grist mill, along with multiple hiking trailheads like Abrams Falls. There's a campground, restrooms, a visit area, and a general store, and they even have horseback riding here. It's also one of the best places in the park to spot wildlife like deer, turkey, and, of course, the oh-so-famous black bear. Also, for those with a good 4x4 or willing to take a short hike from the Metcalf picnic area, there is the Little Briar School, built in 1882. It's part of the park and is truly fascinating, not only for its history, but pristine waters and gentle trails. Metcalf is also one of the few areas in the park that is completely and utterly accessible to the outside world through its own small exit. Once you're back on 73, if you keep following it, you'll end up in Townsend, which is often called the peaceful side of the Smokies. This is a great place to pause, grab food, use the restrooms, or just enjoy all the things that they have there. All right, we're going to backtrack back to Sugarlands again and pick up Route 441 this time. The junction here is easy to get to, but before you head there, if you're coming in from Pigeon Forge, I would suggest getting to Gatlinburg a different way. Those of you who are familiar with the area know about the spur, which is the connecting road between Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. Along the spur is the Gatlinburg bypass. Now, the only reason I suggest this is if you've already seen the big sign at the beginning of the park, you don't need to see it again. You already got pictures. However, there are some spectacular views of the city of Gatlinburg if you take the Gatlinburg bypass and go up and around the city itself. Not only will you avoid a lot of the traffic in the downtown Gatlinburg area, but you also get a new view and perspective of the city from high above. Once you're back on 441, which is also called Newfound Gap Road, you're going to see a huge difference. One of the biggest differences is the elevation gain. You'll notice that as you're driving along this road, you're heading a lot of uphill along the way. And on the way down, you're going to be using your brakes a lot. So just be aware of that. Another thing a lot of people comment on is the temperature change. When you get up to the highest point, which is about where Clingman's Dome is, you're going to find that when you step out of your car, it might have been 70 degrees in Gatlinburg and now it's 45. One of the first stops along the way is popular with not just tourists but locals as well. It's called the Chimney Tops Picnic Area. And though it's not a camping area, it does close at dusk. It is popular for its picnicking area, gentle walking trails, but even better is the giant boulders. So a long time ago, the glaciers pulled these boulders down off of wherever it got them from and deposited them here. So the river winds its way up and through these massive boulders, and it's a huge place for rock hopping. Now, I don't do it as much in myself anymore because honestly, I'd probably break my legs. But those of you who are younger, a little bit more athletic, this is so fun to do, to see how far up the creek you can go before you have to get into the water to get to the other side. After leaving the Chimney Tops picnic area, then you'll stumble upon some amazing vistas of the actual mountains that the Chimney Top area is named after. The Chimney Top Trailhead is one of the most famous hikes in the park. And even though it's actually a very short trail, it is a grueling 3-mile hike up 1,400 feet of elevation gain. Is it worth it? Yes. The views are spectacular. You do need to have some good knees when you're coming down because you'd be doing a lot of staircases down that way. Parking, once again, is very limited. Further down 441 is the next major destination, the Alum Cave Trailhead. This is also an extremely popular trailhead. A lot of people go there. It is very busy and very limited parking. People like this because you get to walk up to the side of the mountain, and from the top of the Alum Cave Trailhead, you'll get to see the cave bluffs and Arch Rock. Beautiful, beautiful scenery. Love to go up there. But if you are the adventurous type and want to keep going, I would consider going all the way to Mount LeConte. This total hike is about 11 miles, and here you're going to see 2,800 feet of elevation gain. It is a grueling, tough hike, but one of the most rewarding ones. At the very top, you're going to find the only place in the national park that has indoor lodging, I guess we're going to call it. They're basically little cabins, and you can rent them. People rent them out months ahead of time trying to get to these, be able to stay here. It's really fun to be able to say, hey, I stayed on top of Mount LeConte. If you keep driving past Alum Cave Hiking Trail, you will pass the Ben Morton Overlook and will finally reach Newfound Gap itself. This is the border between Tennessee and North Carolina, and it's also where President Franklin D. Roosevelt dedicated the Great Smoky Mountain National Park in 1940. There is plenty of parking, restrooms with running water-ish kind of, and wide open views that make this one of the most popular stopping points on the drive, as well as the highest point on 441 Newfound Gap to pass through. A little past Newfound Gap is the turnoff for Clingman's Dome Road. This road is about 7 miles long and is closed in the winter, but when it's open, it takes you to the highest point in the park. From the parking area, it's a short but steep paved walk to the observation tower, and on a clear day, you can see over 100 miles in multiple directions. If you keep going past Clingman's Dome, there's definitely a few more stops and popular hiking trails past this area. People are more likely to just pull their car over and take a look at what they see in front of them. There are many spectacular overlooks, short walking paths, and wide open vistas clear of trees or obstructions. One of the most notable is the swinging bridge. Here, guests can see one of the clearest, widest views of the mountains from any place along the road. If you have made it this far, consider stopping at Mingus Mills. This is a historic working grist mill that is a short few miles from the park entrance. It's about 0.2-mile walk from the parking area, and there are restrooms nearby. It's one of the easiest historic stops you'll ever make, and mostly because it doesn't require a lot of hills, which is awesome. After you've left Dominguez Mills, if you take a right, you will continue on to the very last or first place on the 441 road. I'm not sure which to call it. It's the Gatlinburg Visitor Center and Mountain Farm Museum. This area is especially well known for elk viewing in the nearby fields, along with easy walking paths, historic buildings, river views, restrooms, and the visitor center. You can also easily park your car along the highway and get some great photography of the elk grazing in the fields. Please remember though, just like the bear, don't touch. They are wild animals. All right, now that we've discussed 441 and 73, I pointed out at the beginning of the video, there's a couple places that are not directly on those two routes. One of them is the Roaring Forks Motor Nature Trail. Now, don't let the motor part of this dissuade you from visiting, because there are plenty of wonderful hiking trails and other scenic things you could see there that are not in your vehicle. However, most people usually stay in their car for the 5.5-mile scenic loop, and they drive around through these winding, steep forests, past rushing streams, a couple waterfalls right alongside the road, and of course, there's quite a few historic cabins and even a mill at the very end. You might even spot Noah Budd's Ogle Cabin Homestead, one of the founding families in the area. As I pointed out, this is a loop road, which means it is going to be narrow, slow, but a lot of people just enjoy the peace and serenity of it. There aren't a lot of big vistas or views from above. However, it's very quiet, and sometimes you just feel it's like a remote place, even though you're only like a couple miles from Gatlinburg. On the complete flip side of everything, we're going to talk about another place called Gatlinburg. Now, Gatlinburg is very well developed. It was a homestead that was in the area, several homesteads in the area, and it is beautiful. I mean, it is one of my favorite parts of the park. However, it is hard to get to. It has had a lot of damage in the last couple of years from flooding, and a lot of the roads and trails have been shut down in the park, making it extremely hard to access. However, if you're willing to put up with the drive, the back roads, and some very narrow dirt roads, you will seriously enjoy going here. It's known for its elk viewing, that's one of the biggest ones, and also a lot of quiet hikes, and there are historic buildings here scattered throughout the valley. And they also have restrooms. There is no visitor center here, and it is very, very remote. But if you enjoy the idea of Cades Cove but don't enjoy the people as much, this is going to be a much better destination for you. You will like this place way more if you are willing to take the really long drive to get there, but it is quite fun. And finally, once you're back in the Tennessee side near Townsend, there's another pretty major Smoky Mountain attraction, and that's the Foothills Parkway. This is all part of the national park, and it basically is a route that follows the ridge line through the park. So you actually have amazing scenic mountain roads that run the edge of the Smokies. Now, the Foothills has a couple downsides. One, it's not easy to get to from Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge. Not as challenging as Gatlinburg, but it definitely, you do need to kind of go out of your way to get there. Another thing that I think is a downside, and I would like it if they did something about it, they need some restrooms on this road. If you need to use a restroom or a facility, you do have to stop at one of the towns in between the Foothills. A section of the Foothills that is not connected is the Cosby Park. Cosby, Tennessee has its own section of the Foothills, and they also have a campgrounds and access to the entrance to the park. Okay, now I have just flown through the park and its major stops and attractions, at least the popular ones. But I do want to advise you, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more to see in the park. In fact, if you look at the map, look below those two roads. There is almost 90% of the entire park is not even accessible by those two roads. So if you are planning to come and you only have a short amount of time, this is the perfect video for you. If you have a lot more time to explore, just keep looking because there's so much more to see and do in the Smoky Mountains. I do hope that this video helped you plan your visit to the Smokies. You're getting an honest review from our personal experiences, but facts and things change and roads close, attractions change, whatever. And if you would like to keep us in the loop, if you learned anything new, let us know in the comments. We love to hear from you. Thanks again for visiting us at Bare Facts of the Smoky Mountains. Please click that like button and subscribe to our channel.